Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, August 17th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons. Man, sometimes I get grief when I say that. Some people will say, "Oh, Arneson, Minnesota." Well, yeah, those guys did a lot of early RPG stuff. Dave Wesley, it's true. Absolutely. Proto-RPG origins go back to some of what they did and some of what others were doing. But Lake Geneva is where Dungeons and Dragons was published back in 1974, and that makes it the birthplace of D&D. End of story. It's not the end of the story. It's really just the beginning. And that's what's so exciting about it. In fact, even as we work through these troubling times, we've got a legacy of nearly 50 years of RPGing to fall back on to get us through. And isn't that exciting? Hey, you know what's coming up? Well, today is Weekly News and Announcements Day. Let's not forget that. And right out the gate, I want to congratulate Mike Skull and Pants. He won some dice early on. He was awarded, given, gifted. Gifted is the best word for it. I think at week 3 he got the gray set of dice, which I think he passed on to his wonderful son. Brilliant young man who's also a gamer. And he's been in and around, not every day, but almost every week, several times a week in some cases. Depends on his schedule. Everybody's got schedules. Everybody's got things they got to get done. So do not ignore your schedule for the sake of gaming or the show or anything that we do to recreate when we have the time. So week 3 and week 20, go to Mike Skull and Pants. Got himself a Virtual GameHole Con badge, and we set him up with that. We've got another one for next week. Maltworm and Lost Nomad were here yesterday, so they're the only ones so far in the running. Week 21, can you believe it? Can you believe that this is the 158th show? Can you believe that part of the show is going to be dedicated to the 2020's Virtual GameHole Con, which is the convention that we are doing as a group? Since I'm giving away badges, there's a bunch of us going, and that's cool. And Virtual GameHole Con needs your game submissions. If you've got a badge and you're thinking about running a game, start thinking about how you're going to put that together. I'm going to try to get my submissions in mostly this week. I mean, sometimes you can throw in a late one where you know you don't have something going on and you don't have something that's going to butt up against. But part of what we're doing, coordinating as a group in a sense here, is trying not to step on each other's toes, and also trying to make sure that we can game with one another at various times if we so desire. So if we're careful about when we're scheduling games, and check out that schedule and see if other people have already submitted things that have been accepted that are up your alley, so you don't wind up submitting something in the same time slot or overlapping in a time slot as something you want to play in. It's there's always going to be something you miss out on. It's just the way of conventions, whether they're in person or virtual. No way around it. God, I miss so many war games that I want to play at Gary Con because, I've got this regular schedule. I've adjusted it a little bit. I rarely get to play in Keith Sloan's games, and he runs such wonderful first edition AD&D games. That's what I do. When I go to Gary Con, I try to get in an original D&D game or two. I definitely keep open some time for playing in some first edition AD&D games. And then most of the rest is either wargaming or retro clone gaming. That Jeffrey Talanian game, Astonishing Swords and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, is a treat to play in. It's like falling down and breaking your leg in a Conan novel. It's just that dangerous. It's a lot of fun. It's like pretty much the Conan setting, and so magic's a lot more narrow. So there's some player characters that can utilize magic, but for the most part, if you're running up against magic, it's trouble. So watch out for that. That's a lot of fun. And there's all sorts of other retro clones. People are running Osric games, Castles and Crusades games. You've got, you name it, it's probably run at Gary Con. Much of what I try to do, though, is wargaming, because most of the rest of the year I could play most of this other stuff at one time or another. Maybe not original D&D, that's a tough one to find. But the wargaming, I rarely get into wargaming, and especially chainmail games, so I always try to play a few chainmail games. Of course, what I run are board games like Divine Right and Civilization. I used to run Kingmaker all the time, but the late Steve Elliott's son, Linda, is wonderful, and used to run it with him on his knee, if you will, at wargaming conventions back in the day, and grew up. She's in college now, so when she makes it to Gary Con, she brings his old expanded, it's like a blown up, scaled up Kingmaker board, and I love Kingmaker. And when she runs that, she runs it like her father would run it, and it's quite a tribute. She's just so wonderful. But so I stopped personally running Kingmaker in deference to her better version of the game. So, and it's Kingmaker. It's just expanded with miniatures and things instead of a regular hex and chit board, right? Anywho, morning, Skull and Pants. Congrats, you winner. Lost Nomad, how are you this morning? Good to see you both. I already announced that you won, Mike, so you don't have to be modest about it. You can do the little victory dance if you want without too much upsetting of people. LexFire22, what up? Thank you for coming out. Got your note. What did we get? Oh, I wanted to show something off that you did for, let's see if I can find it real quick, because it's the shiznit, as they say, in that world where that's a thing to say. Gotta do this, gotta take that off. We'll pop this over, and we will, we can do this even. There we go. Okay, now I just want to change screens over to, look at those doors. LexFire22 making the doors. So that Bowman there, what's he from? He almost looks GW-ish, but he's got much more detail. Really nice paint job on that, too. Classic helmet. Yeah. Boy, that's a look. And the two doors, you've got the one is iron-bound The other is wood construction completely. The handles, you told me those were the tops of fancy fancy toothpicks, right? Toothpicks that have that sort of carved beveling thing to them, and you just topped them off and shaved them down a little bit, glued them on there. Those work out really nicely. Anyway, congrats, man. Those turned out great. The weathering on them is phenomenal. You really got it. You really did a great job on those. You really did. We'll switch back over. All right. Well, enough gloating over your success. And success it is. Now you just got to make another couple of hundred of them and build a dungeon to put them in, and the doors are craft sticks. Okay, cool. The figure is okay. The doors are fun. The figure's very good. Man, I mean, I'm just, maybe I have low expectations because of how crappy I am at painting. That would be a possibility. Let's not discount that. I'm crap when it comes to painting. I just slap it on there. But I think I think that figure looks great. You know, when you take a photo of a painted figure, that's usually when all the little spots you missed and stuff pop out at you. But there's nothing like that in that. So those are fantastic. Anywho, I just want to know what the figure is in case anybody wants to, in case anybody likes that particular pose or particular iteration of an archer. You know, almost all archers, if the bow's in their hand, they're aiming, right? For a lot of them, they're either knocking an arrow or they're drawing the bow. So there's not a ton of archers where they have it in their hand, but they're not actually in the process of shooting. It's more dynamic. I get that. I get why people do it. But if you want a mix of figures, then you kind of want to make sure you get a little bit of everything. Anyhow, where are we at here? We're looking at GameHole Con number 8. GameHole Con, Virtual GameHole Con number 8, right? 2020. It starts, it is happening the 5th through the 8th of November. So there's that. If you are going to participate in that, if you're going to run games, now's the time to really start buckling down. Consider your submissions. Figure out if you're going to put something in. I know that generally I will run 16 to 20 hours worth of games. I just got in that habit because most times that's when for physical cons, that's when you get the break. They'll throw you a free badge, maybe some swag, some kind of ups or extras, but it's the badge really that I like to, I don't mind supporting the con because you're working. I mean, you're working 16 hours. What's your time worth? Is it worth at least, I don't know, $10 an hour? So, you're taking on a part-time job when but if you love running games and you don't mind officiating war games or board games, or and sometimes you can even play it. If it's a board game, you can give yourself a seat and you can teach the game and play in it while you're just teaching and learning. While there's new players learning it. But a lot of times for older games, you'll find that there are people that want to play that have played in the past but can't find people to play that particular game with. Maybe it's an older one, maybe it's a complex one. A lot of older ones are longer games, and in this day and age, try to find a board game. You're not going to find a ton of board games that take over an hour, hour and a half tops to play. Well, usually there's like a tipping point there where a lot of people will say, no, this is too long. And that's what you put on the box. When those things hit the table, you'd be surprised. You might not be surprised to discover that a lot of times when those hit the table, they're teaching somebody to play. And so it takes them longer because with a teach, as my friend Mark likes to say, usually add 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how complex the game is and how many people you're teaching. But like I say, with GameHole Con, with Gary Con, I'm sure North Texas RPG Con, which is primarily RPGs, but there's got to be some board game going on there. There are old board games like Divine Right from '79 that people will have wanted to play for years and they've never gotten a chance, and that game can take hours. So you put it into a time slot for 3-4 hours. You say there's going to be a hard limit. We won't play. We won't exhaust this through the 20 turns. We'll get in as many turns as we can, and then we'll declare a winner based on victory points at that point. It works. It's plenty enough for most people. So anyway, you play a game like that, once you teach it and get going and stuff, you're a half hour, 45 minutes in. You got 2.5, 3 hours in a regular time slot, which are often set up as 3-4 hour time slots. Anyway, I set up a 6-hour game. We just sit around. We make sure it expands. It spans over a food break, so we order food at the table and everybody eats while we're playing, because in a lot of those old games, while you're taking your turn, other people are watching you, but they don't need to be directly involved in what you're doing unless you're attacking them. So, they can sit there and eat and watch and kibitz and throw in their 2 cents and diplome and try to talk you out of attacking them and all the other fun stuff that people will try to do when they fear you like they fear me, and they do. No matter which faction I am. It's not true. People never fear me. People usually beat up on me. He said, laying the groundwork for his next victory. Anyway, good times. So, there are ways of doing this too. Con of Champions, which was run through tabletop events as a fundraiser for tabletop events. Ran some board games with them. You can use Tabletopia. You can use Virtual Tabletop, which is kind of through Steam. You have to, say up front what you're using, obviously. Yucata.de, YUCATA.de is one that does board games really well. Tabletopia, as I mentioned, is one that I've used to run board games at conventions, at virtual conventions. So, there are fun things to do besides RPGing at these virtual conventions. But the virtual conventions are the places where we get to throw our RPG favorites out there to run, and we can almost guarantee, not completely, but almost guarantee, that if we run something, there will be people out there that will probably play it, especially in a virtual convention, right? Because there are people all over the world. Some people are in the middle of nowhere wishing they could get into a regular game, and these virtual conventions are a lifeline to them when it comes to getting a chance to play. So set up your games. Have some fun with them. I wanted to take a quick look, and I'll set that up over here. Let me adjust this again. There we go. I can do this, right? Okay, there we go. We'll switch over. There we go. GameHole Con. Huzzah! If you've been over to the website, you've seen this. If you've noodled around, don't forget, you got to sign in, my account. If you've already got a badge, then just sign right in. Run a game. event submission form and event submission information. You can switch back and forth and get all the information you need to know. Information for Virtual GameHole Con 2020. You must have a badge, buy a badge, have a badge, before you can submit events to Virtual GameHole Con. There will be no badge reimbursements for running games at Virtual GameHole Con. Badges are pretty inexpensive. If they weren't, would I be giving away so many of them? Oh, Clover, you cheap bastard. Running a game at GameHole Con. GameHole Con is seeking GMs to organize and run games at the area's premier tabletop gaming convention. Gary Con. GameHole Con 2020 will be November 5th through 8th at the Alliance Center. That's not true. In Madison, it will be virtual. It will be online. GM and special guest lounge. Pleased to announce GMs have a place to relax. Most of this information is carried over from the physical incarnation, but it still is those dates. You still need to submit using their submission form. They apparently don't use tabletop events. I was not aware of that, but that's not a big deal. They are clever people who know how to organize a convention, so I'm sure they'll be fine. Let's have a look at the event submission form. Proposed event title. Make it something cool. Make it something catchy. It doesn't have to be "You are saving the world," literally, but if it's along the lines of that, there are certain types of people that are going to be jumping all over it because they like saving the world when they play other RPGs. There are others who will see that and say, another save the world scenario. I just kind of wanted to dungeon crawl. If you're running a dungeon crawl, put something in the name that says this is a dungeon crawl, right? Crawling through the depths of the whatever, so that everyone knows, right? Rule set, easy enough. We know how that works. Group name. Now, I'm not 100% sure. What's it say on the left? Group affiliation. Okay, so wording's a little different, but same thing. Are you part of a larger organization? If so, let us know here. You know what? If people that are running games want to put in TOGS, TOGS, it's not a requirement. Don't feel like it is, but it might be easier to search up games that are that have that in there. If you put TOGS, all capitals, everyone will be able to find it, because when you're searching the event list, you can search by group names, I think, or use that as a parameter, and it'll all pop up. So yeah, feel free to do that. I'll put that on mine. If people are looking for my game, they'll be under group name TOGS, the OK Grognard Show. And we'll see if that helps people find and fill their seats. Event description, detail it. Make sure you put in there if you are using pre-gens and what level. That's an important thing to have in the group description. I always tag the end of my event description with mention the system again. First edition AD, let's say, for example, first edition AD&D, 5th level pre-gens. I don't say available. I say, because I don't want people bringing their own stuff. I don't want to take time out of the slot having to approve someone else's character, and I don't want to do it, say that I'll do it ahead of time. People do that, and maybe that'll work, but it's a time-consuming thing to coordinate with somebody to check out their character. And then what if you say, it doesn't fit my scenario, you'll have to do something else, and then they get upset. Yeah, forget it. So I just say, what do I say? Let me see if I got another thing here somewhere. 5th level pre-gens provided. So, and people will ask what? You'll say, well, you know what, I've got a pile of them. And make more than you'll need, because it gives everybody some choices. You don't have somebody, Oh, this is the last one, I guess is the one I'm stuck with. At least if they have a few options, even if they don't get the thing they want the most. And wait till most people are there. If someone's running late, well, you got to forge ahead. But when you're running the event, once everybody's at the table and you're at your time, then say, okay, let's choose up some pre-gens. Does anybody have a particular type of character they want? Some people will, and that's good. If more than one person want the same pre-gen, have them roll off. Have them both roll a d20 and say, whoever rolls highest gets first pick, because that's how we do it. And then, but a lot of times you can just talk it out. You'll have people that'll say, well, I like wizards, and someone else will say, I like clerics, and no one will say I like clerics. I don't know why. I always take a cleric, but I usually wind up with a cleric because no one else takes it, and I'll just take whatever's left, right? But anyhow, make sure it says that in your event description at the end, that what the level is, that pre-gens are provided, assuming they are, and you probably should. You don't want to spend time at the table creating characters. It eats into the adventuring. Max number of players, that's tricky. I'll tell you what, face to face, I'll do more players than I like to limit it to 4 online. It lets you have a group of players where everybody gets a chance. There's a lot more competition for talking time online, and it's tricky. It's a lot easier to feel people out when you can see their body language and their faces, and you can know when they want to, when they want to contribute. So it's easier then to make sure they get a chance by focusing on them at the table. It's tricky to do that online. So go with fewer number of players than you think you would normally want. In an RPG, 4 kind of minimum though, so say 4. Say 4 for the minimum, maybe say 5 for the 5 or 6 max, right? Duration, well, I'm a 4-hour slot guy. I got used to doing 4-hour slots for conventions. Some conventions will do 3. A lot of organized play stuff will do these quick surgical strike 2-hour boom boom thingies, and I don't know. That's not enough for me. I prefer a 4-hour slot. So take that to heart. Maybe preferred start time. You will not see me submit a game, generally speaking. Every now and then I'll make an exception, but not often, before 10 a.m. I just like to be able to get my morning started. So for this, it will be 11 a.m. for me, Central, because I plan to still be doing my show each of those mornings, and I can be done and have my other stuff together by 11, by 10:30 usually, but I'll say 11, give myself a little buffer. But I don't like, scrambling in the morning and going to run a game like at 8. That's just too early for me. Plus, I like to play late if I can. I don't play too much past midnight. Usually a Saturday game will go to 1 or 2, maybe a little later, but for the most part, 10 a.m. is kind of my thing, so be conscious of that. Event type, board game, card games, miniatures, role-playing games, other event, organized role-play, D&D Adventurers League, volunteer. So there are various things. I'm not sure why volunteer is an event type. That's interesting. Maybe you're setting up events that only volunteers can play in. That's weird. Does it say something up over here? Special request. Event description. Doesn't say. Maybe you can set up games just for other volunteers. That's kind of nice. This is important. Player experience. None. Young players welcome. Newcomers welcome. Be sure if you choose any one of those 3, you fit in time into your scenario for teaching whatever it is you're playing. There will be people that will come there expecting to be able to know absolutely nothing. And even more true online, where people who have yet to play in any virtual tabletops will come there knowing nothing. They won't even set it up. I've had a couple of people that when they needed to download stuff didn't do that in advance. They didn't even sign up on a website for like Tabletopia in one case. So if you're going to use any of those three designators for player experience, expect to be holding people's hands right out of the gate. And some people will show up late, even if they know nothing, which surprises the heck out of me, but it happens. Some gaming experience, usually you can, and put this in the description, what virtual tabletop or interface, whether it's Theater of the Mind Discord chat or Google Hangouts Theater of the Mind, or we're using Roll20 for maps, but we're using a Discord voice chat or voice and video, and stipulate that people have to have that available to them in the event description, because you don't want people showing up and not knowing what the heck they're doing, or not even being aware that they needed to understand certain types of software to play in a certain game. If all of that stuff's in the description and everything goes swimmingly well, you'll be very fortunate. But if that's the case, you can hit the ground running, right? You pass out the pre-gen characters, give people the hook, the explanation of where they are and what's happening, and then jump right into the scenario, and that'll be great. Some gaming experience is usually the minimum I will do, unless it's a board game. I'll teach people board games online, but I'm not experienced enough to be teaching people how to use a virtual tabletop or teaching a rule set online. I'll teach people at a physical table how to play certain things and guide them through being a complete newbie, and that's all cool. I welcome that. But virtual tabletop, it's a little beyond my skill set. I'm not experienced enough with the one to be comfortable doing the other. It's just where I'm at. Hopefully I get better and I'm able to do that later. You know who's wonderful at teaching people stuff is Bill Petrosky. If he's running any seminars at GameHole Con, and it'll probably be on his Twitch channel, Realm of Mirror Realm, what's it called? Oh God, I can't think of the name right now. Maybe I can pop it up over here and see it. I do not. Mirror Realm Games. That's it. He's wonderful. If you ever get a chance to be in a seminar where he's teaching stuff or expounding on how to run RPGs and stuff, that's a way. Age range. I swear at the table. So I will usually put mature, 18 plus. I don't want to subject someone else's kids to something, and you never know. You can make an exception in the moment, but you can't go the other way. So be careful about that. If you're running a clean game and you're able to mind your P's and Q's and you're sure that you can wrangle the other players into minding theirs, because that's part of it, you're running a table here. You're in charge of what other people say. So if you get some crotchety old D&D player who likes to, drop F-bombs left and right, and you're running an all-ages game, and you can't rein them in, you're either going to have to boot them or something. Call a convention organizer over to deal with it, and that's going to be tricky online. So watch yourself there. If any of the material within your adventure, whatever, seems like it could lead to mature scenarios, let's say there's an altar, sacrificial altar. I mean, that right there, that's like the simplest one I can throw out as an example. There are others. If there are prisoners, all of these things are tougher to deal with online than they are face to face. So, I can tone it back down if I see in someone's face at my face to face table that something is starting to trigger somebody, and I can back off. But if I can't see that, if I don't have those visual cues, and even if you're running a video on virtual tabletop with everybody on camera, it still can be tricky. Now, there are certain things you can do at the beginning of a scenario. There are certain systems people have put out there where they can hold up a card, which works great at a table, or they can use a safe word or something like that. Certainly, if you're running something that you're not flat out saying is mature only and you haven't spelled it out in the event description what all is involved, you may want to tell people, look, if you're being traumatized by something in this scenario, then send me a private message if you feel more comfortable that way within the system we're using, or just flat out say, hey, this is making me feel less comfortable than I would have thought, or whatever. Give them a safe word. Tell everybody all they have to say is Susquehanna. All they have to say is Niagara Falls. Slowly I turned. So, watch your age range. That's the long and the short of that. Special requests, well, that's usually for at the table. This event contains mature content. So even if you say you want mature players, you should click that if there's anything in there that even smacks of potential mature content. Then, of course, you affirm blah, 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 all of this other stuff, which is very important. Your submission, acknowledge that my game submission contains considered adult themes. I have described the adult theme material in the body of my submitted event description. Okay, this is what we just talked about, right? I acknowledge that the purpose of this requirement is to make clear to potential underage gamers that this game, should it contain any such themes, is likely not for them. Finally, I realize that violation of this directive can result in a lifetime ban to any GameHole Con related activities. Well, there you go. So they're not messing around. They're covering their CYOAing quite smartly. So just be upfront about everything. Make sure you put it out there, what's going on, what is involved, and try to be sure to be sensible and sensitive. It doesn't hurt to not mess with someone's head that way. I mean, there's a certain amount of that goes on in RPGs already because that's what people sign up for, right? They want surprises. They want to be on the edge. They want to be immersed in a setting, but they don't sign up for that. So care about people. That's all I have to say. All right, where am I at? I'm going to do this. Come back over here because we're almost done here. And I want to be sure that everything is covered before I sign off. Today we're a little long. I'm surprised. I actually thought this was going to be a faster show. But there we are. We're at 40. So let me just say real quick. Do the thing. GameHole Con. Congrats to Mike for winning. Death Angel Shadow. Hey, there you are. Good to see you. We'll get everybody on the list that should go on the list. We got Death Angel Shadow. We got Inkdweller 8. We've got Lexfire 22. We've got... Who do we got? Do we got everybody there? Skull and Pants and Lost Nomad. Okay. Wonder where Grail Knight is today. Who knows? Skull and Pants. Okay, I've got everybody. All right. Always good to keep the list updated. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Don't forget to schedule tomorrow cartography and world building. I think we're going to be looking at online generators. So I will be showing off a whole bunch of ones that I have found and discussing their usefulness. So we'll do that. And then campaign discussion on Wednesday, GMing tips on Thursday, building adventures on Friday, GM reviews on Saturday, rules retrospective on Sunday. We'll be looking at Druids from first edition AD&D. Back around to the weekly news and announcements again next week. If you are here, then by all means, follow the channel and chime in on the stream chat, because that is how we know you're not a bot. And then we can add you to the list for the weekly giveaway. There's no purchase necessary. It's just something we do to give people a thank you for being part of the show. And, that's too far. We don't want to go there. We just want to also say, if you're on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up on a video, maybe some constructive criticism in the comments. It's always appreciated. And with that, that's me saying, join us every day, 9:30 a.m., unless something comes up. We don't miss a lot of shows. Sometimes we're a little late, but pretty much 9:30 a.m. daily from beautiful Lake Geneva. Have a good one. See you later in the week. Bye-bye.